Now, what's very important is the pentagram is an important symbol to Freemasonry. In fact, the Eastern Star, the women's group, their symbol is a pentagram. But many people don't know the difference between a star and a pentagram. But the Masons themselves know the difference, and they tell us what the difference is. In the book called The History of Freemasonry, written in 1891. This book was written by a series of 32nd and 33rd degree Freemasons. On page 49 of the book it says this, quote, "This star represents good when represented with 1 point upward." And the page reads on, let me remind you, these are high-ranking Masons, quote, "But when turned with 1 point down, it represents evil, all that is opposed to the good, pure, and virtuous," end quote. So the star with 1 point down is evil. And the Masons have it on the cover of this Bible. The Eastern Star is a pentagram, as I mentioned, as its chief emblem. And it's always been, the pentagram is one of the biggest symbols in Satanism, and probably the biggest. And as you can see right here, this is a clothing line right here. It's called the New World Order clothing line. By the way, they also had, as you can see here, first of all, as a pentagram on the guy's side there. What's interesting is their advertisement, they talk about order coming out of chaos for the New World Order clothing line. The colors, again, are very interesting, black, red, and white, because they're the colors of the Nazi Party. And the Masons declare in their writings that the colors of the Royal Master Mason degree are black, red, and white. The Masons have created many groups, such as the Eastern Star, we've mentioned, has the pentagram for the symbol, the Demolay, which is for the young men of Masonic members, the boys. The Job's Daughters, or Rainbow Girls, for the young girls of the Masons, and Prince Hall Lodges for the blacks. And the Shriners are a special group of Masons made up of 32nd and 33rd degree Scottish Rite Masons and 13th degree or Knights Templar York Rite Masons. The Shriners claim to be a charitable organization, yet the facts prove that isn't the case. Only 1/3 of the money raised by the Shriners goes to charity. The Shriners also wear red hats called fezzes. Some Masonic statements against the church. The Masons used to call their official magazine the New Age magazine, but when the New Age movement got a lot of bad publicity, they changed the name of their magazine to the Scottish Rite Journal because of all the negative things being said about the New Age movement. It is the official magazine of the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, and it says in the Scottish Rite Journal, quote, "Catholicism, not communism or socialism, is Masonry's immediate worry." The French Grand Orient gave utterance to the following profession of faith in 1885. It said, quote, "We Masons must aim for the complete destruction of Catholicism." A chief in the Masonic Alta Vendita Lodge proclaimed, quote, "Let us conspire only against Rome," end quote. In the stone inscription of the Masonic Grand Orient and Supreme Council of France, it says this, quote, "The fight taking place between Catholicism and Freemasonry is a fight to the very death, ceaseless and merciless." So, and what most people say is if you want to destroy the church, and if you're against the church, and you believe that the church is the true church that Jesus Christ established, why not infiltrate it? And they have infiltrated it. This is a copy of the May 8, 1991 edition of the Mount Washington Press, a paper near Cincinnati, Ohio. It talks about how the Archdiocese of Cincinnati, Ohio sends all possible candidates for the priesthood to Joseph Wicker. Joseph Wicker is a worshipful master of Mount Washington Masonic Lodge number 642 in Mount Washington, Ohio. That means that he's the president of the Masonic Lodge in his hometown. Mr. Wicker says that he no longer considers himself a practicing Roman Catholic, but practices what he calls Rosicrucian experiments. The Rosicrucians are a Masonic-like group that says everything should be guided by the use of reason. They've been officially condemned by the Catholic Church, and Mr. Wicker also says he believes in reincarnation. So Archbishop Pilarczyk of the Archdiocese of Cincinnati, Ohio, has a Freemason screen all the candidates for the priesthood. Many people say then, well, obviously the church looks to be infiltrated, and the communists also tell us that this is the case too, that they were told by Moscow to infiltrate the Catholic Church. Mr. Manny Johnson, a former official in the Communist Party in America, gave the following testimony in 1953 to the House Un-American Activities Committee. He said, quote, "The communists discovered that the destruction of religion could proceed much faster through the infiltration of the Catholic Church by communists operating within the Catholic Church itself," end quote. Mrs. Bella Dodd, who spent most of her life in the Communist Party of America and was Attorney General designate had the party won the White House, After her defection from the Communist Party, she revealed that one of her jobs as a communist was to encourage young radicals into the priesthood. And she said that before she left the party in the United States, that she encouraged more than 1,000 young radicals to infiltrate the seminaries and religious orders of the Catholic Church. And she said back then they had risen to the highest places in the Church. And so this is why you don't have any call to conversion, you have no exposure to Masons. And what I'm saying should be said by almost every priest in the United States and throughout the world. It's not said because these people are either direct infiltrators or they just don't care anymore. There's a complete apathy as far as the true faith. This is an interesting picture we have here. This is a grade 6 catechism. It was given to 6th graders across the country. And you can see right here the little dots, the dark dots on this. This is the opening page, as you can see. This is Christ. This is Christ with us. And you have these dark dots all over the page. And of course the communists are trying to achieve victory over the church. And you can see the dark dots. What's interesting is you line those dark dots up, and what do you get?
Looks like a hammer and a sickle.
Communist, hammer, and sickle. So what they were saying was that they've now achieved victory over the church, and at least they think that. And we know if there's just even a small group with one true priest that upholds the one true faith. That's what St. Athanasius did. Even if the true remnant was reduced to a handful of true believers and say one true priest that believed in the true Catholic faith, they remain the true church of Jesus Christ on earth. So, and he said back then, St. Athanasius, during the Arian crisis, that we have the faith, they have the buildings.
So there's a definite link between Freemasonry and communist philosophical thought patterns.
Yeah, yes, exactly. And we're going to see now is, this is according to the book by Dr. James Wardner, Unholy Alliances. He says that Mr. Jim Shaw, former 33rd degree Mason who left Masonic Lodge, says that when he became a 33rd degree Mason, when he was initiated in Washington, D.C., at the House of the Temple, there was someone there, an internationally prominent evangelist, was there to help him through his initiation, and present there, who was none other than Billy Graham.
So one of the biggest evangelists, Bible preaching religious figures, Protestant figures, is a Freemason.
Well, according to that book, that's what it says. So that's what he put in the book. That's what he claims Jim Shaw said who was there. So that's interesting. Another person who I hope if he is a Mason, he's come out of the lodge. But Pat Robertson, there's a Masonic symbol called the lion's paw. It's like this, and that's a Masonic symbol. And Pat Robertson, this is the cover of the Time magazine, February 17, 1986 issue. He's giving what looks to be the Masonic sign called the lion's paw. Pat Robertson also, in his book The Millennium, has a point within a circle at virtually every page of the book. And the point within the circle is definite occultic language for sun worship, and it was also chosen for the symbol of Illuminati. David Yallop, in his book In God's Name, an investigation of the murder of Pope John Paul I, he builds a case that the P2 Masons were involved in the murder of John Paul I, who served 33 days. We'll see a little later in the tape how significant and important the number 33 is to the Masons. Yallop says that the P2 Masons have interlocks with the Mafia. Maybe that's because both groups have the same founder, Giuseppe Mazzini. And Mazzini said, quote, "Our final end is that of Voltaire and the French Revolution, the destruction forever of Catholicism," end quote. Some other churches, such as the Church of Mormon, Joseph Smith, the founder of the Church of Mormon, was murdered by the Masons on June 27, 1844. And the reason why is because Joseph Smith, who was a Mason, revealed the secrets of the Masonic Lodge in the Temple Endowment Ceremony. It's a ceremony in the Mormon Church, and they have the aprons on now still, and so forth. It's very similar to Freemasonry. The Masons also use a Masonic timetable system. They don't use AD, they use AL. AL is their standard of calendar system. It means Anno Lucis, and that means in the year of light. It could also be interpreted to mean in the year of Lucifer. So 4000 BC would be 0 AL, and 2000 AD will be 6000 AL, or 6,000 years since Lucifer was cast from heaven. And that system lines up because This is a picture of a Distinguished Achievement Medal awarded to C. Fred Kleineck, the current Sovereign Grand Commander of Freemasonry, on May Day, 5990 AL, which is 1990 AD. And you can also find AL on the cornerstone, at the engraved date of any cornerstone laid by the Masons. And I just mentioned May Day on that coin. May Day is very important for the Masons. We'll find out a little later why. The Masons definitely believe in symbology, numerology, and they have a fascination with the number 33. I believe they had major events happen on the 33rd degree latitude of the map. Masonic Encyclopedia says that Charleston, South Carolina was selected as the first home of the Council of the 33rd degree Masonic Lodge. And Charleston, South Carolina is right under the 33rd degree latitude of the map. Other major events that have happened on the 33rd degree latitude, it's where the first nuclear bomb was dropped, tested, Trinity Site, New Mexico. And the monument chosen to commemorate this site was an obelisk, which is a Masonic symbol, a phallic symbol. The 33rd degree latitude also passes over both Hiroshima and Nagasaki in Japan. These sites were the place where the first two bombs, atomic bombs, were dropped at the end of World War II. It's a known fact of history that we didn't have to drop the bombs because Japan was trying to surrender, but the bombs were dropped anyway. And these two cities were where the two largest population of Catholics were. The man who dropped these bombs on these Catholics was 33rd degree Freemason Harry Truman. Truman was a 32nd degree Mason when he dropped the bombs in October of 1945. He became a 33rd degree Mason. And Truman said, quote, "Although I hold the highest civil honor in the world, I have always regarded my rank and title as a past Grand Master of the Masons as the greatest honor that has ever come to me," end quote. But the most astonishing incident that has occurred on the 33rd degree latitude of the map is it passes over the city of Dallas, Texas, where on November the 22nd, 1963, JFK was assassinated.
In Dealey Plaza,
where the president was shot, the president passed an obelisk that is located right in front of the school book depository on the street, Elm Street, where the president was shot. There's a small plaque, which has always been on that obelisk, saying this, quote, "Within this small park was built the first fraternal lodge in the state of Texas." So the park in which JFK was shot was the place where the first Masonic lodge was established in Texas. Now, there are two views of history. There's an accidental view of history, which people believe that there's no plan when major events come about. There's nobody plotting or planning to bring about something when some major events happen. And then there's the planned view of history, the conspiratorial view of history, that people plan to have certain things happen to bring about something. And obviously, it's very clear, I think, that history has been guided by the planned view of history, that people have definitely planned to bring about something. And in fact, FDR, Franklin Roosevelt, said if anything happens in politics, you can bet it was planned that way. The Oklahoma bombing, as well as Waco, happened on April 19th. According to the Satanic calendar of high days, April 19th inaugurates a period of blood sacrifice to the beast, culminating on May 1st each year. May 1st is called May Day to the communists. And May 1st is the day when the Illuminati was started, and why there's always a large military celebration in Russia. Now, going back to Freemasonry, modern Freemasonry is given its name by Joseph Levy on August 25th, 1716, and approved on June 24th, 1717 by the first official Freemasonic Lodge. They chose Masonry because it would act as a thick veil over the secret origin of their foundation. But what we know as Freemasonry came most recently from the Order of the Knights Templar movement in the 1300s. Actually came before that, in the year 43 AD, from a group called the Mysterious Force. That's actually where Freemasonry came from. And this following information is from a book called The Origin of Masonry. The Mysterious Force was established in 43 AD, and it started when a counselor to King Herod Agrippa came to him and complained that the followers of Jesus had a mysterious force, and that they should establish their own mysterious force to combat this Christian mysterious force. And the purpose of this group was to attack the teachings of Jesus and in order to preserve Judaism. King Herod Agrippa said, quote, "We will use the hammer because it was used to nail Jesus' hands and feet. Every session will be opened by striking the hammer 3 times, end quote." And you notice that judges have the hammer to bring order to the court. King Herod Agrippa said, quote, "We will make degrees. These will be 33, symbolizing the age of the impostor." And on November the 43 AD, the first official session was held in the First Temple of Jerusalem, which was a basement in the palace of King Herod Agrippa. The meeting of the mysterious force was always held in the temple. That was the name, the temple.